Hey everybody, welcome to the Week 10 Power Rankings. Before we get rolling, as I always say, please 2 seconds of your time for 2 clicks, a like, and a subscribe. We want to get some of these production features unlocked for us by being a YouTube partner. We need your help for that. But what I'm going to do, as I always do, is roll down from 10 to 1. We do have a new number 1 this week after the loss. I wouldn't say a shocking loss. I wasn't super surprised, but I think a lot of people were that Baltimore took care of New England. What the hell? Let's shake things up, right? Before I get rolling here, I do want to also give some respect, some teams that just couldn't fit into my list. The Carolina Panthers, Bovada has them at plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. The LA Rams, they are at plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl. The Indianapolis Colts, Bovada has at plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. And the Dallas Cowboys are at plus 1,400. Some respect to them. They just couldn't make the list this week. I didn't have enough room to fit them in. And also, if you're curious, Philadelphia is lurking at plus 1,600 to win the Super Bowl. Although, me personally, with the latest news about Deshaun Jackson, I just don't think a Philadelphia team with the second receiver being Nelson Aguilar is going to win a Super Bowl this particular year. But we'll see how the rest of the season shakes out. We're only a little bit more than halfway through. Okay, so let's start the countdown here. Number 10 on my list, Bovada has at plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl. It's the Houston Texans. They go to London. They take care of Jacksonville. They're going to be on a bye week. My concern, J.J. Watt's hurt. I don't love that he's hurt, but this defense did a really nice job against, I think, an underrated Jacksonville Jaguars team. They handled their business. Now they're on a bye week. Maybe Will Fuller can get healthy. Maybe they can get him healthy for the stretch run. The dude is always hurt. That sucks, but it is what it is. Number 9 on my list, the Minnesota Vikings, Bovada has at plus 2,500. I'm not overreacting to that Kansas City Chiefs loss. As I said in my game previews last week, this Kansas City Chiefs team, they have a lot of weapons, and even though Patrick Mahomes wasn't in there, remember Andy Reid is still a hell of a head coach. He schemes wide receivers open. He took Donovan McNabb, who had accuracy issues his entire career, to the Super Bowl and a handful of NFC Championship games. He can win a game or two with Matt Moore. Minnesota, very, very good. But Kansas City, I think their defense, really stepped up this week, and we'll talk about them more into the next part. But Minnesota, I'm not freaking out. The loss, I wasn't shocked by it, but they're still in a really good position, and I like this team. They're built for the playoffs. They can run the ball. They can play defense. And once Adam Thielen is healthy, I think this is a different type of team. Number 8 on my list, the Kansas City Chiefs. Bovada has them at plus 900. Like I was saying before, the defense is really stepping up at this point. I feel like when Patrick Mahomes went down with injury, they really kind of tried to take ownership of the team, almost like the New Orleans Saints did when Breeze went down. They're 1-1 now. They beat a very, very good Minnesota team. They didn't have enough to beat the Green Bay Packers, last week, but very, very good team. Patrick Mahomes might be back this week. They were originally looking at him to come back this week, Week 10 for the Tennessee game. We'll see what transpires there. But this Chiefs team, regardless of who's playing quarterback, I like, and I love them with Patrick Mahomes. Number 7 on my list, the Green Bay Packers. Number 12, they're at 1,200 plus 1,200 according to Bovada to win the Super Bowl. Now, I downgraded them. I don't care so much about the loss, but they were kind of manhandled in that loss. It was an ugly loss. It wasn't like a 27-24. It wasn't really that. They couldn't get anything going against the Chargers team. That concerned me a little bit, so I moved them down. I think they were at number 3 or number 4 last week, so that's why they got downgraded. I'm not going to freak out, though. I mean, Green Bay, they still have Aaron Rodgers. They still have Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams is not on the injury report earlier this week. So that's really good news for Green Bay. They need him. They need another receiver to step up, though. Number 6 on my list, according to Bovada, plus 5,000 to win the Super Bowl. So my ranking's a little bit inflated, but I'm going to give some love to the Buffalo Bills, who they've been hovering around that number 9, number 8, number 9, number 10 on my list. Buffalo took care of business against Washington, as everybody expected them to. They have Cleveland this week, and I think they're actually getting points. They're underdogs at Cleveland. That's how undervalued they are. This defense, you can't sleep on this defense. It's good. Washington, some other teams, I think Philadelphia, they were able to run on this Bills defense, but I think they'll shore it up. They did, come back and avenge, I guess, the NFC East loss. They beat the Washington Redskins. They beat them soundly. And we'll see what happens against Cleveland. That's an interesting game for me. But for now, Buffalo shoots up in my rankings a couple of spots. They're at plus 5,000 once again. Number 5 on my list, and this is really where you get into the interesting teams to win the Super Bowl for me. Number 5 on my list is Seattle. They're at plus 2,000. They won a nail-biter of a game against Tampa Bay. I think people were expecting Seattle to blow Tampa Bay out. Remember, Bruce Arians has familiarity with Coach Carroll based on his time coaching the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not super surprised. Now, I didn't think it was going to be a 40-34 game. I thought it was going to be a game in the 20s, a little bit harder. But, Seattle putting up points on, I think, an underrated Tampa Bay defense. Russell Wilson having an MVP-type season this year. I like what Seattle's doing, plus 2,000. I think that's really nice value. In terms of value, actually, I think they're probably my favorite futures bet. Once again, plus 2,000 for them. Number 4 on my list, moving down from number 1, the New England Patriots at plus 250 according to Bovada. Look, Patriots fans, I know you still think the Patriots are the best. And frankly, if this was a playoff game, if they're going to the Super Bowl, would I bet against them? No, I would not. One of my rules is to never bet against Bill Belichick. I took the Patriots in the game, although I thought Baltimore was a mismatch for the Patriots. Again, what are we in? What month are we in? November football is a lot different than January and February football. I understand that, but this is a power rankings for this week, and I'm moving the Patriots down. But what really concerns me though is that the Patriots are giving up yards against Cleveland. Nick Chubb was able to run. Buffalo, Frank Gore was able to run on them. Teams are able to basically kind of punch the middle of this defense in the mouth a little bit. Once they kind of ship Bennett out of there, I think this defense, you can't say they got weak. I mean, it was only 1 week, so again, I'm not going to overreact to it. But again, this is a power rankings. It's kind of for fun, and I wanted to move Baltimore up. Speaking of Baltimore, they're number 3 on my list at plus 950. I've loved Baltimore all season. Now, here's the deal. Here's what concerns me is Baltimore. I would say that they dominated that game. In terms of my opinion, I think they were more physical than the Patriots were, and that won the game. They did very well, and I think that's the way you have to beat New England. But Lamar Jackson still only threw for like 160 yards, and I know, like Baltimore fans, there's a little bit of chip on your shoulder. When are people going to give more love to Lamar Jackson? I get that. I lived through it as a fan of the Washington Redskins. I lived through it with RG3 his rookie year. It took people a while to come around. I like Lamar Jackson, and I also credit New England's defense. They tried to take Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown away, and I think they did a good job. And Jackson definitely did more than enough to win that game. My only concern is, can they keep up with a team like the Chiefs, who we saw them play earlier in the year? They had to go for a bunch of fourth downs, which they converted a lot of them. Can they beat a high-flying team? I don't know. I still think they match up well against the Patriots. That would be a fascinating playoff game if we get that matchup down the line. I think there's a good chance we will. But Baltimore, I think they would actually have more problems with like a team like Kansas City that can put up a lot of points once Mahomes is back in there. So we'll see. Can they win a shootout? I don't know. Can they win a game where they control the clock and just pound people with the run game? Yeah. So very, very good team. Been high on them all year, and as you can see, they're number 3 on my power rankings, so still high on them. Number 2 on my list, the New Orleans Saints. Now, I flirted with putting the Saints at number 1, but I figured, who's left, right? San Francisco's number 1 on my list. The Saints, according to Bovada, are at plus 500 to win the Super Bowl. I think they should probably inch up a little bit. I think the Saints could give the Patriots a little bit of a hard time. The difference between like the Saints and what you would get with them versus like the Ravens and what we saw is that Lamar Jackson is more of a factor in the run game, and Drew Brees is more of a pocket passer. I don't know how that matchup would shake out. It would be a really, really fun one to watch. I hope we get to watch that at some point, but we'll see what happens there too, right? There's a lot of good teams in the AFC. There's this AFC is a little bit more interesting than it was last week or even the week before that. San Francisco, number 1 on my list. You got to reward them for being undefeated. I thought they were going to do a little bit better against the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. Now, no disrespect to the Cardinals. I actually like the Cardinals team quite a lot. But I thought San Francisco's defensive line would be able to neutralize some of the stuff they were doing. And what ended up happening was Kenyon Drake actually just ran kind of over the 49ers. I think that was within the confines of the defensive game plan, though. So I'm not really downgrading them too much yet, but I'm paying attention to it. Just like I paid attention to what Baltimore did after Cleveland and Buffalo were able to run on New England. I want to pay attention and see, are teams going to really attack and run up the middle? That's kind of what I did in my deep dive. That's kind of what I suggested the Cardinals do. Let's see what the interior of San Francisco's line looks like, and they had some success. I'm curious to see. I think New Orleans and San Francisco would be a hell of a matchup. I think Green Bay and San Francisco would be a hell of a matchup. These teams that want to commit to the run. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. A lot of stuff is shaking out. Like I said, I tried to do a top 10, and I ended up mentioning 14 teams this week because I still like a lot of teams. A lot of teams are still in it. But once again, San Francisco, Bovada, plus 650 to win the Super Bowl. I think that number should be more like plus 400. Their defense is good. We saw Garoppolo throw for 4 touchdowns. That was one of my question marks. Emmanuel Sanders is making an immediate impact in this offense. Got to like what they're doing. Got to reward the one undefeated team this year. San Francisco, for the first time this season, it's not New England. San Francisco, number 1 on my power ranking. So everybody, once again, please like and subscribe. And for our listeners of the podcast, back to the show.